This is the very famous statue of Baron von Steuben overlooking the Grand Parade. Jason pointed out a few minutes ago, if you look at that statue, you can see the enormity of that statue and how large Baron was. One of the reasons is that the statue is so large, if you can see at the bottom, that it was erected by the National German-American Alliance in 1915. So because the Baron is German and it's 1915, obviously they're going to put a very large statue of Baron von Steuben here. Much larger than what we saw with the Houdon statue of Washington down at Washington's headquarters. But the Baron is looking out on the Grand Parade, and he's looking and watching all the troops being put through their drills, and he's screaming and he's yelling out orders and he's sweating profusely. And he was like one of those professors that we all had in college that was very animated and walked all over the place and sweated and jumped up and down and was constantly in motion, the Baron von Steuben. He then becomes a general, and he stays here for the rest of his life. He lives up in New York. New York was so grateful for what the Baron did, they gave him 10,000 acres to live on up in New York. And also, he claimed to be a baron. He was not a baron. But who was going to check that? No one's going to check that. He claimed that he had some right to be a baron because of some obscure person in Germany that he inherited that title from, but that's never been substantiated. But no one is going to question that. No one is going to question that because what he did to help the Continental Army and help Washington win the American Revolution. He makes a very interesting statement about Americans, which is very true. He said, you know, in Europe, when people are given a command, they obey. Here in America, when men are given a command, they ask why, and then they obey, which is very typical, particularly for any of us that have children. How many times did our kids always ask us why when we asked them and told them to do something? So that was very characteristic of what von Steuben saw with the Americans. He loved the Americans. He loved the spirit. He loved the attitude of what they were trying to do here. And again, he is part of what Washington labeled later on almost a miracle, when he comes here and he brings in the hygiene and he brings in the structure and he brings the standardization here, that wherever you are from, you are now going to all be trained the same. Behind us is the fields that General Varnum used to train African Americans who came to the army. This army was an integrated army. There was Oneida Indians here, there was African Americans here. General Varner took command of training African Americans because most of them came from New England, Rhode Island, where he was from. And once they were trained, they were all put into the line. So we don't have an integrated army again until the Korean conflict. This was an integrated army that all the men were trained the same and they were put into the lines. And now we have commanding officers who are going to give the same commands and no longer just simply militias doing whatever they want. Because of the Baron, because of General Varner, and because of the leadership of Washington, this army leaves here a standardized, powerful, well-trained, and well-supplied army.